Live. This Hangout on Air is live and direct from sunny Southern California. We got Podfeet logos everywhere. Wait. There's another one. Podfeet. We got Podfeet everywhere. It must be the NosillaCast Mac podcast hosted over at podfeet.com. All right, it is time for roll call in the chat room. No, GarageBand, don't do that. We have Donald and Steve and Barry. Is that Barry Porter? I bet it is. And Kevin and Jamal is back. Haven't seen Jamal in a long time. And we've got Jenna and Johnny Quinlan. Hey, Johnny, how you doing? My note today that I'm actually not going to play your audio today after all, because the way it got answered, it was a little bit weird. But I want you to review anything you want. Like I said in my email, if you would like to review a stick of gum, I would play it because I love your voice. Kenny Lee is here from New Jersey, and Mac Lurker is back from the Pacific Northwest. John is here, and Mark also from the Pacific Northwest. Had her and lost her. Oh, no. All right, let me get rid of Adium. You shouldn't be running. Anything else running that should be? Oh, yeah, we got some stuff. Let me get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that. I got a lot of stuff running. And all that stuff looks to be critical. Okay, couldn't get audio video at the Google Plus event page. Had to come to the Podfeet page. That's interesting. And what was that ding? Whatever it was, we are going to change it so that it doesn't come out of that location.
I'm not hearing Alpha Geek.
You are not hearing Alpha Geek. Yeah, you're right. It's not looking like it's working. Okay, hang on one quick second. That's weird. Okay, let's see. Are you hearing me on the app, Steve? Okay, so it looks like an Alpha Geek problem. So I'm going to go ahead and stop and you restart. Okay, I'm stopping. All right, video and audio. Yay, Barry. So did I guess right? That's Barry Porter that has joined us today. Lovely to see you again, Barry. And Barry Folk, when he's Barry Folk, throws an F in there somewhere, Folk B. All right, we're working on getting Alpha Geek Radio up. It looks like it's not going. Oh, okay, now it's up on Google Plus. Cool, yay. The one thing. Oh, yeah, Steve. Two things. If you would, once we get Alpha Geek Radio going on, keep an eye on those metrics. We like to see what's going on if people are listening from there. And the second thing was. I couldn't quite hear you, Steve. Maybe just go ahead and use the chat room. Oh, you're ready for butt, probably. Sorry. That is the name for the tool that lets us talk to Alpha Geek Radio. And we're connecting. And Johnny BMX. All right. It's not connecting, Steve. It's getting stuck there. It says it's established, and it's not working. Ah, I see why. Hang on, Steve. I'm going to stop for a second and restart. Hang on a second. Somehow it got changed to Soundflower 64 channel, which makes no sense because I never saved it at that. So I'm going to connect it again a third time, and maybe that'll get us going. No, it's not happy. Okay, I'm going to quit. I'm going to stop and quit but one more time. Yeah, go ahead and stop on your end too, Steve. Actually, this would be more interesting if people could see you and hear you. You know that. He's shy, though. He doesn't like to be in front of the camera there. We hate to leave our Alpha Geek Radio friends out. Let me know when you've got it up, Steve. Far behind where the audio was on Podfeet. Ooh, now that's interesting. Joel. Joel who? We have a Joel. Oh, is that the Minion? Hey, Joel, how you doing? All right, we're going to try to get Alpha Geek Radio in here one more time. Let me check my settings first. Okay, it's just changed. Man, it's changing the device, the audio device, all by itself, Steve. There it goes. Now this one's going to be happy. Here we go. All right, here we go. Alpha Geek Radio, we are here. Sorry for the delay. Had some odd technical difficulties with the program that streams the audio in there. It's a lovely app called Butt. I don't know why it's called Butt, but it's got an acronym. I'm going to move my camera. It's bothering me. It's off center, and I dislike lack of symmetry, as Dorothy knows. All right, Anouk. Hey, somebody new's in here today. How you doing, Anouk? If this is your first time, howdy. All right. All right, I think it is time to get this show on the road. Let me go ahead and do a save as for GarageBand, which I often forget until later, until Kevin tells me to save, and then I get it right. 0928. There we go. All right, let's do a test recording here. Hi, this is Allison Sheridan of the NosillaCast podcast, hosted at podfeet.com. And let's see if we play this back. Hi, this is Allison Sheridan of the NosillaCast. That is not where the audio should be coming out. It should be coming out there. So let me try this one more time. All right, tell me if you guys can hear this. No, I bet you couldn't hear that. Something funny's going on. Just a minute, let me check this. Sunflower 2 channel. I'm assuming you could not hear that, Steve, on the video? Try again. Oh, you could hear it. Really? Even the second time, right here. Okay, forget about sound off from video. That's okay. I'll work on that in a second. But are you hearing GarageBand playback? Really? So there's little dots that light up. Oh, I bet I'm looking at the wrong dots. Let me check one more time. No, that's interesting. So you can hear the playback, but are you saying my lips aren't matching my face? Is that the problem? Oh, matching now. Okay, I'm not touching anything. I cannot explain why that's working. It shouldn't be. Normally I get little blinky lights over on the Google Plus, on the Google Hangout, and it shows me whether you can hear me or not. If it's the little bouncy lights, then you can usually hear me. And they're not bouncing. Okay, Steve wants to hear it one more time. Ah, nothing here on Google Plus. Okay. All right, so the blinky lights aren't lying. But I'm not sure. Let me just try changing this to, I'm just going to change this. So I just changed the setting on the Google Hangout to be just my microphone. Now I'm going to change it back to Sunflower 2 channel, which should be the mix that is successfully working everywhere else. What is this one? Well, that's interesting. Oh, no, I don't want that. I want that there. Okay, there we go. That doesn't actually matter. All right, let me try it one more time, see if that tickled it and got it to work. Hi, this is Allison Sheridan of the NosillaCast podcast, hosted at podfeet.com. All right, I bet you guys heard that time on the Google Plus. Good. Steve hears it on T Plus. That's good. He's got a whole new tool we don't know about. I want to be on T Plus. Why haven't I gotten an invite? Have you guys heard about Ello? Ello's the new social network that the anti-Facebook. Toodle Plus. That's nice, Steve. That's nice. All right, well, now that we've got everything working in 8 minutes, we better get going because I got a lot of recording to do. It's all me this week. Here we go. Hi, this is Allison Sheridan of the NosillaCast podcast, hosted at podfeet.com, a technology geek podcast with an ever so slight Macintosh bias. Today is Sunday, September 28th, 2014, and this is show number 490. You know, first there was the streaming of the Apple event, which will forever go down in history as the truck slide event. I defended him for that disaster, saying it's just too many people were trying to watch. But then someone reported a mistake they made in their coding of the website that caused the problems. Bart says that explanation is horse poop, and since he's usually right, I'm going to have to agree with him, but he had no better explanation of what actually did cause the problem. It really felt like it wasn't a load issue because the errors were so strange. I had even more trouble defending the Chinese translation overlay. That was just a total noob mistake. That was an utter embarrassment. It was made more shocking by how long it lasted. I mean, that was like a half hour that silly thing was going on, right? I mean, that's just piping the wrong audio. I make those kinds of mistakes, but, you know, you get what you pay for here. Anyway, then there was the disaster of trying to order phones. Sure, 6 million people did succeed at pre-ordering, but one wonders how many tried and failed to get in or simply lost patience. Again, I apologize for Apple for that too. It was just a sign of how hard their servers were getting hammered. It was odd that for 2 straight hours their website never resolved at my house, though. And also odd that AT&T's site was actually functioning at the same time that Apple's was not. But still, I defended them. Now photos of and videos the iPhone 6 Plus is bending under pressure surfacing, and that stuff even made the national news. I laughed it off though, and I talked about how much I'm looking forward to how Saturday Night Live will spoof this. Look, I put it in a vise and bent it with a sledgehammer, and it actually bends. This is a terrible design. I pointed out that when I put my glasses in my pocket and sit down, they bend and break too. What do they expect from Apple? To defy the laws of material science? Like I said, it even made the national news when there's huge crises in the world to talk about. Now Consumer Reports has come back and said that, well, actually the iPhone 6 Plus is even better than the 6, and it takes an awful lot of pressure to break it. So anyway, there does appear to be some debate about that. But then my apologies and explanations for Apple ran out. When they pushed out iOS 8.0.1 and iPhone 6 and 6 Pluses lost cellular connectivity and their Touch IDs failed, I just couldn't believe it. Seriously, your flagship phones, the ones you just sold 10 million of over the weekend, you didn't test this update on those? Really? Somehow you found the time to test it on iPhone 5S's and below, and they worked fine, but you forgot about the new ones? This botched update was so bad they had to pull the update back. I don't think I can remember them ever doing that as far back as I can remember. This is an inexcusable failure on Apple's part, and I'm getting real tired of apologizing for them. I really am. I think iOS 8.0.2, I'm still having a whole lot of problems with that too. I had my my iPhone 6. I was trying to take a picture, swipe up from the lock screen, and my phone locked up, turned black, everything was off, but it was still functioning. So like I could press the home button and I could talk to Siri. I couldn't stop talking to Siri because for about an hour there she kept saying, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Couldn't do anything else with the phone. Finally, somebody on Twitter, and I should have remembered who told me how to do it, but basically holding down the home button and the power button at the same time for like 10 seconds will reboot the phone. But I mean, I'm having all kinds of weird little dodgy problems, so I don't know. I'm getting a little tired of apologizing for Apple, and I don't know, kind of had enough of it. All right. Let's see. I need the Dumb Question Corner music here. We have a dumb question. Dumb Question Corner music. Okay, you go here. Cue Dumb Question Corner music. We haven't had that in a while. And I'm going to go up here. Apologizing for Apple, and I don't know, kind of had enough of it.
Dumb.
That sounds too quiet. I don't think I like Dumb Question Corner on that level. I like it here, I think. For Apple, and I don't know, kind of had enough of it.
Dumb.
Dumb
question.
Okay, that sounds really quiet too. Why are those both so quiet? Okay, those are both that low, huh? Well, I may have to put this back down when I put it back where it belongs. But I may have to fix that when I do the chit-chat music. I don't remember this one being that low, though. Let's do that one more time. For Apple, and I don't know, kind of had enough of it.
Dumb.
Now it's a little bit too loud. All right, I'll get this right yet. Let me bring this down just a smidge there. I think that'll be about right. For Apple, and I don't know, kind of had enough of it.
Dumb.
Dumb
question. What is?
How come I always have to?
It's time for Dumb Question Corner.
Yep, that's right. It was Mark did help me, but it was on. He got me halfway there on 1Password. Still don't understand why it worked, but I'm halfway there. I'm taking my phone back in Apple tomorrow anyway. I didn't even mention that the touchscreen's all dodgy. I don't know. I'm tired of it. Gonna take it back tomorrow. Have a conversation with them. All right, here we go.
Corner.
Steve Davidson has our dumb question for today. Here's what he wrote. A few years ago, when I bought my iPad 2, those of us in the U.S. had to decide at the time of purchase whether we wanted a GSM iPad 2 to use on AT&T's network or a CDMA iPad 2 for Verizon's network, or get a Wi-Fi only version, which I didn't want. Apple built two internally different iPad 2s. Once you picked one flavor of iPad 2 or the other, you were stuck with that carrier, or its lesser Sprint or T-Mobile radio twin for the life of the device. My impression from reading the specs on newer iDevices, iPhones and iPads, is that Apple is now making them with both carrier radio types. It looks like the hardware is capable of either, no internal differences, so you aren't locked into one carrier or another unless you buy a contract that way. The dumb question is this: is that right? Is this the utopian future really here today that we've all been waiting for? If so, that gives the consumer a lot of freedom. For example, when the new iPads come out, I could just buy one and later decide which carrier I would prefer, or get a monthly plan from the start and change my carrier later. The various carriers would have to compete to keep my business, or I could get my wife an off-contract iPhone 6 Plus and pick the carrier that gives us the best voice and data plans. Oh, she who answers dumb questions, please enlighten me. Computationally yours, Steve. I'm going to stop here for a second because Steve Sheridan is telling me, oh, that's cool. All right. We've got a bunch of people on Alpha Geek Radio. That's cool. Maybe. New York Linda's here. I didn't say hi to New York Linda. How are you? All right. Hey, Linda, how do you like the improvements to podfeet.com/live, being able to see the chat right beside the video? I was kind of proud of getting that going. I was excited about that. All right, I'm going to keep going here. Well, I'm not an expert on this, so I had to do some actual reading and learning. I found on Apple's website a description of the different bands supported by the different phone models you can buy. They show that if you get the phone from Verizon, you do get CDMA as well as GSM, while if you get the AT&T or T-Mobile version, you only get the GSM bands. You get some other bands, but not CDMA. It seems to me that the Verizon model would be the most flexible based on this information. I put a screenshot in the show notes to the Apple page that I'm citing and the direct link to the iPhone 6 specs. I also noted on the screenshot that there are two models in there that are definitely locked to Sprint. I got that information from an incredibly detailed site on the subject called techwalls.com. In the early description, Tuan Do describes the differences between the models and the advantages of each. Now, I'm not going to read the whole thing to you because I think if, along with Steve, you're interested, you'd really be better served going to the link in the show note to Tuan Do's site. And again, there's a link to that in the show notes, along with the comment section where people pose these obscure scenarios of where they live, where they're going to be visiting, and which phone to buy, and Tuan answers every one of them absolutely definitively. He appears to know what he's talking about. Now, I also wouldn't normally cite Leo Laporte as a source, but he said something on Twit that could be in concert with the tech specs that we're reading. He said he pulled his AT&T SIM out of an Android phone, and he plopped it into his Verizon iPhone 6, and it worked. It made calls and did data. Again, not a great source of facts, but he did claim to have done it, and it did align with what we had read about the Verizon phone being able to do CDMA and GSM. So it sounds like if you buy the Verizon phone, you can use it later on either network. Now, after Steve read this information I've just described to you, he wrote back, the key takeaway of the article is that the iPhone 6 model A1549, the CDMA model, and the iPhone 6 Plus A1522 CDMA contain the super set of radios for U.S. carrier access, enabling them to work on both the Verizon and AT&T networks, among others. The article describes this as the Verizon version, and that as all Verizon phones are factory unlocked, it can work on most CDMA and GSM networks in the world, which is consistent with the list of radio channels compatibility that's listed in the article. So I think we have our answer here. Steve, thanks for the dumb question and forcing me to learn a little bit more about this. Now I guess I'll just sit in the corner with my AT&T iPhone that can only work on its own band. Anouk, you're going with the 6, huh? It has been so interesting. It doesn't appear that there's a right answer there. My favorite thing was the fact that 50% of the people in that survey from iMore, 50% said 6 Plus, 50% said 6. Maybe the right answer would have been a 5. What is it? There's a 5.7 and a 4.7 and a 5.5. Maybe a 5-inch phone would have been right. I had another thought. What are they going to call the next model? iPhone 6s Plus? iPhone 6 Plus S? don't know what that's going to be. All right. I think the phones all have the same radios and antennas. No, they do not, Mark. That's what's so interesting. The AT&T ones do not. And I will drop that link in the show notes so you can look at it. That's what was so fascinating, was it's the Verizon ones that can. Oh, use VoiceOver. Cool. 6 Plus would also be better for OCR, but people don't seem to think so. For sure, you read there's a lot of difference between the cameras if you have a steady hand and don't have low light. iPhone Pluses. Yeah, go look at those. Or actually, here, this is even better. I have. Oh shoot! Well, give me a link to my own thing. I can show you. It's kind of fuzzy. It didn't look that good. Let me find this. Here it is. Nope, that's not it. Here, look at this diagram, guys. This is the one that shows that you only get it from Verizon. You don't get CDMA with AT&T. I think I got that right. All right, we got a lot to go here. 7 minutes in, and I got a lot to talk about. Here we go. When last we left our heroes, Allison and Steve, we were trying to set up a second Drobo. If you didn't hear last week's show, the problem to solve was that we wanted a new Drobo and to use our old Drobo to back up the new one. We made a slight error by putting the old drives in the new Drobo just to test the speed, which reconfigured them so we couldn't just drop them back into the old Drobo without erasing them. We were partway through the process of copying all that data over our network to a 3 terabyte USB drive as a holding place till we put the new drives in the Drobo and put the data back. Okay, is everybody caught up from last week? Right. So copying the data from the new Drobo with the old drives over to the USB drive spanned about 5 days, but we were not feeding it data that entire time. Now remember, we were using a USB 3 drive, but Steve's iMac only has USB 2. While it was copying, we bought a Belkin Thunderbolt dock from Amazon. This dock plugs into one of the iMac's 2 Thunderbolt ports, and it gives him 3 USB 3.0 ports, 2 Thunderbolt ports, so he actually gains one. He doesn't lose because he lost one when he plugged this thing in, plus gives him gigabit Ethernet, which he already had, and FireWire 800. By the way, this thing was $159 new on Amazon, but we noticed they had them used for $125, so we went that route. After the data was all on the backup drive, Steve used the Belkin dock to connect it over USB 3 this time to transfer it back to the new Drobo with the new drives. The process of sending the data back, instead of taking 5 days, took 2 days. That's not a super scientific measurement, so Steve used the free Blackmagic speed test app to measure read and write speeds to the USB drive. On USB 2, he was getting 38 megabytes a second and 31 megabytes a second read-write. On USB 3, though, the same drive gave him 78 and 71, respectively, so almost twice as fast. Definitely, that was a scientific test. I heard about this Belkin dock from Dave Hamilton on the Mac Geek Gab. It's a great way to improve the speed on your computer, even if it's as new as Steve's iMac. Dave originally looked into it because his Ethernet jack on his iMac had started giving him 100 base T speeds instead of gigabit, and this was a way for him to get that high-speed port back without tossing out an otherwise perfectly good iMac. If you recall, the original purpose of the new Drobo was to get the increased speed of the 5N over the older FS. When Steve bought the 5N, remember he also bought the mSATA SSD, which was supposed to accelerate data access even more. So while Steve was working with all these combinations, he did several more speed tests to validate what we achieved on whether we achieved our objectives. When we started this whole adventure, we were using the Drobos over Wi-Fi, and only later, when we did the math on how long things were going to take, did we drag an Ethernet cable down the hall to do the heavy lifting. I know, we should have thought of this at first, but it's really impractical in our house under normal circumstances to use Ethernet. But these were not normal circumstances, so the house is a death trap of cables up and down the halls now. Okay, I want to show you guys the graph so you guys can follow along because the graph is really fun. Let's see. Oh, this is one graph you might want, or one little diagram that might entertain you. Oh Lord, he's talking about his grandson again. As bad as me with my puppy. I'm kidding, Mark. That's a cute kid. It's a cute kid, as much as it pains me to tell him. Okay, and here is the Let's see. Oh, you got the bell conduct at work, and New York Linda got it? Oh, cool. All right, this is the speed test I'm going to be talking about here, if anybody cares. We got a party going on. Hey, when did Brett sneak in? Hi, Brett. All right, here we go. Cut that. A bit too much there. Save. Record. I put a bar graph in the show notes of all of Steve's speed tests, but I'll run through it now for you. To simplify things, though, I'm going to average the read and write speeds, but the graph is going to show you all of the data read and write. Our original configuration was the Drobo FS with the old drives. That's what we're going to try to replace, and over Wi-Fi, we were averaging 184 megabits per second. When Steve put the old drives in the new 5N, still over Wi-Fi, very strangely, the speeds actually dropped a little bit, down to 144 megabits per second. We have no explanation for the 5N into the new machine. We went up to 224 megabits per second. So we're still on Wi-Fi, but we only have a little bit of an increase from 184 to 224. We got more speed improvement going to gigabit Ethernet. I'm sure you're shocked, where the old Drobo with the old drives went up to almost 300 megabits per second. The old drives in the new Drobo did much better over Ethernet. Again, no explanation for why they slowed down over Wi-Fi in repeated tests, but over Ethernet, the new Drobo with the old drives jumped up to 448 megabits per second. So that's 300 to almost 450, just moving the drives from the old Drobo to the new Drobo over Ethernet. Finally, the new Drobo 5N with the new drives shot us up to 716 megabits per second. So from the old drives over Wi-Fi, what we were doing was 184, we're up to 716 megabits per second. If we can get Steve gigabit Ethernet in his office, he will nearly be able to fill that pipe with Drobo read-write goodness. I mean, gigabit Ethernet, he's at 716 megabits per second, you're almost there. And yes, I'm looking into getting one of those power line adapters. I found some that claim to be gigabit, but if you read the specs, it says they go 500 megabits per second. So I'm not really sure why they can call those gigabit, and I'm asking around. Now you realize we still have the last piece of the adventure to cover. We have to figure out how to back up the new Drobo to the old Drobo so we can justify owning two of them, right? Well, I'm a big fan of SuperDuper for my backups, but to be honest, the SurePocket software website is one of the least responsive and helpful companies around. They just pretty much don't answer anything. They say, oh yeah, ask in the forums. And the forums don't always know the answers. I popped open SuperDuper, and it was not able to see my mounted Drobo shares. By the way, Drobo calls them shares. They're like mounted volumes, really, is a better way to think of it, but they call them shares, so I'm going to go along with that. So SuperDuper couldn't see the mounted shares, and I couldn't find anything in the documentation to help me. They did say you can't back up to a network-attached storage drive, though, unless you create a sparse disk image at the destination drive, which, I don't know, that's starting to sound like a lot of irritation to me. I checked in with Don McAllister because I know he backs up a Drobo to a Drobo, and he said he uses ChronoSync. I've been wanting to play with it for a while, so I headed on over to Econ Technologies. Before I get too far into this, I have to say the customer support is a breath of fresh air at Econ compared to SurePocket. Jennifer and I are on a first-name basis after all my questions and her great answers. The first thing I really liked was they have a demo version that's very capable, which was awesome. You can do a sync between two volumes to get the hang of how it works, and you can sync up to 500 items. You can test out their scheduled syncing operation, which will be very important in a moment. You can only run one test, and then you have to quit and reopen the software. This is just annoying enough to make you want to pay for it, but not so annoying that you can't figure out whether it works for you. It's really a good combination way to do it. They also have another option. If you really need to do more extensive testing, they have a limited time trial that's a full version. That's really, really flexible. Now, the reason I ended up bothering Jennifer was because I was looking for guidance on why I'd want to pay the full individual license price of ChronoSync directly from their website versus buying ChronoSync Express from the Mac App Store. I really, really wanted the answer to be to buy from the Mac App Store so that both Steve and I could play with ChronoSync Express, and it was cheaper at $30 than each license being $40. Like I said, if I bought it directly through the website, it's $40, so that'd be $80 for us to each have a license. Jennifer explained that the one big difference is that the full version is able to wake up a machine on the network to perform the syncing operation. Oh, dang it. That sounded really cool and like something we'd want to do, but that meant it'd be more appropriate on Steve's iMac rather than my mobile MacBook Pro. But I didn't want him to have all the fun of setting up the backups, and to be honest, in the past, he's shown a slight tendency to kind of shut off backups because, oh, the disk access sound is bothering him, or he feels like it's slowing his machine down. He's been very good lately, but I didn't want to trust him to keep this thing going, and again, I wanted to be the one to play with it. Well, as is the habit of my species, I decided to discuss this with my girlfriend Dorothy. She knows how it is not wanting to share tech with her husband. She had an awesome idea. She suggested instead of Steve or my Mac, why not use the Mac Mini we have hooked up to the TV that hardly ever has anything to do? It was brilliant because either or both of us can screen share to it and control it. I ran a bunch of tests on the Mac Mini of ChronoSync and it worked perfectly. The interface was intuitive and easy to learn. Basically, you drag the source disk into the left pane, the destination disk in the right pane, and then the big arrow in the middle shows you the direction the data is going to be synchronized. I mean, you'd really have to be a fool to screw this up. You have a couple other little decisions, like whether to sync deletions or not. I'm choosing to say yes to syncing deletions because we don't like to save extra data. And let's see, you can sync right there with a push of a button, and you can set up a schedule for when you want the syncs to happen. We chose 2 a.m. It was so easy using screen sharing. I clicked on the Mac Mini under Shared in my left sidebar of a Finder window, clicked on Screen Sharing, and boom, I'm into the Mac Mini in a floating window. I made it full screen so I could use a 4-fingered swipe on my trackpad to flip over to it to see how it was progressing throughout the process. So much fun. I loved it. I bought ChronoSync and I started doing some syncing. The first couple went pretty well until I got to Steve's share called Large Video. Now, I don't mean to say that it went badly. Nothing's wrong with ChronoSync, but after 3 days, only about 300 gig had been synced, and we have a total of almost 3 terabytes to move over to that drive. So you know why this is happening, right? It's because the Mac Mini's on Wi-Fi downstairs. Now, there's no way I can get an Ethernet cable down the stairs around the corner, so I figured I'd just disconnect it from the TV receiver and bring it upstairs and put it by the gigabit switch, plug it in, at least for this process. That turned into a whole nother adventure, but a really fun one. The Mac Mini is now headless because it no longer has the TV connected as a monitor. When I went into screen sharing on it now, when it's disconnected, the window was really, really tiny on screen, and my mouse was moving really slowly. I mean, like painfully slowly. And not just because this is a 2009 Mac Mini with 2 gigs of RAM. This is just horrible performance, unusable. I went into display prefs on the Mac Mini and changed the resolution to something bigger, and the whole screen went black and never came back. I rebooted it, and we were back to the dopey low resolution and the horrible slow mouse. I went off to the Googles and went for a search for Mac Mini headless resolution, and I found the answer. Turns out that if a Mac Mini doesn't see a monitor, it doesn't bother loading those silly little graphics drivers. Why would you need those? But without graphics drivers, you can't set the display, and the mouse will be all goopy. Well, luckily I found this all out at Mac Mini Colo blog, where the unnamed author explained that you can make a dummy dongle for the Mac Mini. The idea is that if you can convince the Mac Mini that there's a monitor connected, then it'll load the graphics drivers you need. He or she explained that you can take a DisplayPort to VGA adapter, plug it into the Mac Mini, and put a resistor across pins 1 and 6 on the VGA side, and the Mac Mini will be appropriately fooled. Now, this sounded like my kind of fun. You don't think that sounds fun, Linda? It's awesome! Okay, so let me see. Let's see. I got to show you the picture of how this all ends up. Let's see. I think this is the picture, so you guys can follow along. There's a picture of the dongle in the Mac Mini with the resistor across it. Uh-oh. You talking about your wedding speech, Steve? Wow, you guys aren't listening to me at all. Oh, you like my tech support calls? Nice to have you here, Anouk. This is fun. Oh, Joel's leaving. Bye, Joel. All right, back to where was I? So I was down here. This sounded like my kind of fun. There we go. Is Kirshen here? Kirshen's gonna love this part. Oh, Dr. Dream is back, and CJ from AA. Who's CJ from AA? Have you been here before? I do know a CJ, or no. I'm not sure I do. Nice to meet you. No, this is so fun. Kirshen is going to love this next part. Here we go. The good news is that I have a pile of those kinds of adapters, the adapters that go from DisplayPort to VGA or HDMI or whatever, so I have tons of those, so I wasn't going to need to buy one. But sadly, Steve, who claims to be an electrical engineer, has no resistors in the house. I'm mechanical, so it's not my job. I'm not sure he's really an electrical engineer, but not to worry. Our buddy Ron is sure to have some. I remember when our kids were little, I forget which one of them said it, but one of them told me, hey, Ron's house smells just like Radio Shack. That's the kind of geek friends you want to love to have. So I called Ron, and he said, of course he has some resistors, but he was in Florida. I explained to him that in a weak moment, he had given us a key to his house, and he agreed that it wouldn't be too creepy if I broke into his garage to steal resistors. He said it was okay as long as I didn't hurt his Tesla that was happily stowed in his garage. He cautioned me that he hadn't ever sorted these out, so it'd probably be a hodgepodge to find the one with the right value, and I'd probably want to bring a multimeter to measure them unless I wanted to spend a lot of time learning the codes of the painted stripes on the resistors. I told him that neither would be necessary. Remember during Macworld this year, Kirshen Sia interviewed the developer of Resistor Vision for the NosillaCast? Resistor Vision allows you to take your iPhone, point at a resistor at the little values, at the little stripy things, and it tells you the value of the resistor. I jumped into the App Store, paid my $2 for Resistor Vision, and I took a walk to Ron's house. Now, the author who suggested faking the dongle said they'd used an 85 ohm resistor and gave no guidance on whether that value was important. Ron said he thought anything from 100 to 500 would probably be fine. You don't want to short the thing out with too low of a value, but too high, and it wouldn't work either. When I got into his garage and started scanning with Resistor Vision, I was finding many with super high values in the kilo and mega ohm ranges, so I gave Ron another call. He helped me figure out what to do, but while we were chatting, he said, hey, let me try something. And suddenly the horn honked on his Tesla. About knocked me over because my head was right next to the left front. It's pretty cool that he could do that, though. Then he demonstrated how he could unlock the car, and sure enough, the door handle silently slid out as they unlocked. I don't know if you've ever seen that on a Tesla. It's really cool. I tried to get him to start the car for me, but he was smarter than that because he knew I'd just go driving. Anyway, back to our story. I got home, I built my little Frankenstein dongle with one of the lower resistors. I used one that was 290 ohms, and that did work. The ones that were like 350 and 370 did not work. Sure enough, the Mac Mini will now let me set it to 1600 by 1200, which will work fine for my needs. I think this is going to bring to a close, Steve and my long adventure with the Drobos and how much fun we had setting them up. I expect the fun to die down and the dumb things will probably just work from now on. I won't have any fun stories to tell. If there are any fun stories to tell, I will tell you. As I was figuring out how to get ChronoSync working on the two Drobos and the Mac Mini, I decided to document along the way in Clarify. It's not my usual in-depth bit-by-bit tutorial, but I thought it might be useful to some folks, so I went ahead and posted it under Mac Tutorials on podfeet.com. Linda, you bought an iPhone 6? Oh, how fun! How fun are you? Wow. That is really... Oh, CJ from AA. Oh, you're from Ann Arbor, outside of Detroit. When I was about, what had it been, 8 years old, I saw Nixon campaigning at Cobo Hall in Ann Arbor, sitting on my father's shoulders. I grew up right outside of Detroit in Plymouth and Northville, so I know where you're from. How exciting! Steve, are you writing down all these new folks? We got Anouk and CJ from AA. This is so exciting. I love it when new people show up. I love it when old friends come back. That's kind of the way this thing works. Like Jamal coming back. Oh, Jamal left us, though. Oh, you're getting a 6 Plus. Wow. Okay, I'm just checking to see if I'm anything. I love the smell of burning ices in the morning. See? All right. What am I just catching up? Oh, because I've been reading the wrong things. Wait. Ah! Where'd it go? Oh, Charles has been here before. Okay. Oh, you're just yanking my chain. You got me all excited, Linda. All right. You know, that sounds kind of like a great segue for an ad for Clarify. Like I said, I didn't do the tutorial for anyone but me, but it's amazing how often someone else finds one of these tutorials useful, so I always share them no matter how arcane they are. This one's pretty arcane. I dropped in links to things like the Apple support article that explains how if you have an AirPort device or an Apple TV, either one of them will just magically make your Macs wake up for you if you need them. And that's a critical piece to how I'm actually succeeding with ChronoSync to do these backups in the middle of the night. I dropped in some screenshots, I blurred out usernames and passwords, drew boxes around buttons I should push next time, and made myself little notes to explain why I set switches a certain way. It's not a complex tutorial at all, or even all that complicated to execute, but I just hate having to figure something out a second time. So if you're forgetful, or even just lazy, I happen to be both, grab yourself a copy of Clarify from clarify-it.com and save yourself some time and energy. Heck, you didn't even have to share your tutorials with anyone but yourself to get productivity out of Clarify. Nixon was campaigning on your father's shoulders. I know, it was. I thought it was kind of mean. Ooh, I don't think I have moved. I don't think I've moved Chit Chat over. Probably should have checked the recording too. Right. Let's see, that's Chit Chat's right there. Skype. 58 minutes. That's probably it. 14_09_28. I need to clean up some of this audio. Okay, so let's see. Kevin, take your ears off. Wait, where's Kevin? I thought Kevin was here. Where'd Kevin go? You know, I'm not focusing very well after all because Steve is making spaghetti tonight. We haven't had spaghetti in forever. Let's see. This is probably going to be too loud now. Okay, if Kevin were here, I would tell him to put his ears back on. And we're going to drop this in up here. He left for the game. Oh, what game? Mipples is fine. Nobody talks to Mipples. We won't be speaking of that sort of thing. That's why I keep referring to how new Steve's Mac Mini is. Or MacBook Air. I'll get it yet. iMac. His MacBook Air is getting kind of long in the tooth, though. NFL. That narrows it down. To get productivity out of Clarify. Okay, so that really should be back down. Clarify. There we go. Symbols check, Steve. Well, it's that time of the week again. It's time for Chit Chat Across the Pod with Bart Bouchat. Hey, Bart, we got nothing to talk about in security this week, do we?
Absolutely. Nothing happened. I didn't spend an entire week patching stuff over and over and over again. Definitely didn't happen.
You will appreciate the email that I sent to my father-in-law when he asked, so am I supposed to worry about this? I gave him kind of a light explanation. I said, basically every sysadmin in the globe has spent the last 2 days, all day, every day, patching their systems, and you should just hope that they have someone loving at their home to take care of them when they get there.
Pretty much. I think you might note have at some point, you know, what should I do as a user? Buy a sysadmin a cup of coffee. They're going to need it.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, shall we start, I suppose, with shell shock? Maybe you can explain to us what this big vulnerability is and what we should be worried about.
Yeah, so on Thursday, I think it was Wednesday night into Thursday, depending on what part of the globe you were in, the news broke that an update had been released to Bash, which those of us from Taming the Terminal are very familiar with.
I was excited. I knew what Bash was.
Yeah, it is the ubiquitous Unix, Linux, OS X shell. So command line interface. It can be used for humans to type in commands, but it can also be used by apps to run system commands. So that's where things go horribly wrong, because the problem with Bash isn't the humans using it. The problem with Bash is the non-humans who also make use of it. And so initially this was due to the Bash vulnerability, and then it took a while until a nickname surfaced, but it seems that everyone has now settled on calling it shell shock. So that's probably what you've heard it in the media, if you've heard about it at all.
That's kind of fun, because it's a Bash, it's the
shell.
Born Again shell, is that right?
That is it, exactly. So the Born shell is sort of the EOD, the original shell, and it was improved, and they decided to, instead of calling it shell 2, they thought, because the guy called Born wrote the Born shell, so the new Born shell should be the Born Again shell. Ha ha ha. Nerd humor. So that's what Bash is. And the issue really is, like I said, with how stuff that's not the human uses bash, and very specifically, this all revolves around environment variables, which we also looked at in Taming the Terminal. And really what it comes down to is that there are applications that use bash to execute stuff, and they pop stuff into environment variables without really checking what it is before handing it over to bash. And you could have a big argument about whether it's really up to bash to check that it's being asked to execute reasonable commands, or whether it's actually a problem with the apps that are doing the asking, that they should be checking what they're asking for before they ask for it. But regardless of who you decide to blame, the bottom line is that it's possible with just a few carefully chosen characters to trick bash into executing arbitrary code. It's very similar to the whole Bobby drop tables thing on XKCD, if you're familiar with that one, SQL injection, that idea.
I actually knew what that was, but maybe you can tell people.
So if you, in SQL, if you put in a closing quote and then a semicolon, that tells SQL that you finished whatever the current statement was and you'd like to start a new one. And so if you don't check what the user sends you for quote semicolon and just execute it into SQL anyway, then you'll trick the SQL server into, say, drop all tables or something like that. And in this case, it's actually, again, based on the semicolon, but it's a little slightly different. But basically, if you throw in a certain type of input, you can trick bash into running more commands than the app that sent it to bash thought you were running. So it's effectively command injection. And so you get to send some text over, which gets treated as a command instead of as text by mistake. And that's obviously spectacularly bad, because that is literally arbitrary code execution.
Right.
You put in a few symbols, and then the code you'd like to run, you pass it into some app that uses bash, and if that app passes it through to bash without sanitizing it, then it will happen.
So this is on Unix and Linux machines?
Yes.
Not Windows machines, and our Macs are
Unix machines.
Unix machines.
They are. It is also in more embedded devices than you can shake a stick at. Now, the quote-unquote good thing is that just because your device has the vulnerability doesn't mean your device can be attacked. Because if there is nothing facing the network that uses bash to do anything, then there's no way for someone who's not on the computer or on the device to inject stuff to bash.
Okay, that sounds good.
So that's actually why Apple were able to release a statement saying that for the vast, vast majority of Mac users, this is a theoretical vulnerability rather than one we should worry about. The reason you can't say all is because many people use their Macs as web servers, and the Apache web server is one of the ways you can pass stuff into bash.
Okay.
And basically, to attack a web server that's running Apache on a system with bash is as simple as sending a HTTP header with semicolon and a few other symbols, and then the command you'd like to execute, and it just kind of happens.
What about if, say, I don't know, a community had gotten together and all together learned how to make a Mac into a VPN server?
I don't know is the answer to that. But are you making that accessible to the world? You are, aren't you?
Well, yeah, I get to it from the outside.
Yeah, then you are.
So
I do not know whether or not OpenVPN does or does not suffer from this. That's something I'm afraid.
Maybe I'll have Donald take a look at that.
Yeah. Something else that's worrying for a lot of versions of Unix and Linux, but not OS 10, and this is the one, I didn't get clarification on this until last night. No, sorry, until this morning, actually. And the one that really worried me was that there are some implementations of DHCP, which is what we use to configure ourselves on wireless networks, that use bash. Therefore, on some versions of Unix and Linux, simply wandering into Starbucks and turning on your computer would be enough for some malicious person sharing coffee with you to hack your machine through this particular mechanism. Thankfully...
Okay.
Okay, so when you turn on your computer on a network,
mm-hmm.
and you don't have it hard-coded to always use a certain IP address,
right.
which almost no one does today,
sure,
because that just means it won't work 99% of the time,
mm-hmm.
the first thing your computer does is it sends out a DHCP request. It then receives a DHCP response, it processes that response, and does its thing. There are some DHCP clients that you can inject this malware into the DHCP response and take over the machine.
So what device would be doing that? That would have
so
to
you
be
just have
from
someone
the
else.
router, though.
Not necessarily, because DHCP servers can run on anything. So you can.
All right. So apparently I lost the audience because I was trying to make you guys see it. My picture of my stupid dog who rolled on her back and stuck her stuck her tongue out at me while I was doing the live show here. Normally she's not allowed in here, but she got left in here accidentally, and she had strong opinions on the topic. So, all right, let's see where we are at the end of this. Because, yeah, she's giving me a raspberry upside down, which is nice. For those in the audience who can't see it, she's upside down sticking her tongue out at me. So, yeah, she's a great dog. Dumb as a stick, though. She got stuck in a grocery bag today. It was pretty hilarious. All right, here we go. Wait, no, here's where I go.
I doubt anyone's going to be interested in every single tip or trick, but I'd be very surprised if people didn't get at least something out of it.
Cool. Oh, very, very cool. All right. Okay, hang on. Oh, let me start this. I'm in a weirder spot, though. Let's see. Hang on.
But ultimately, it's kind of just install whatever updates you're given as a regular person and let the sysadmin stress out.
And buy them coffee.
And buy them coffee.
All right. Thanks a lot, Bart.
No worries. Until next time, happy computing.
All right. Well, I hope you had fun this time, but it's going to have to wind up the show. Many thanks for our sponsor for helping to pay the bills, Blue Mango Learning at BlueMangoLearning.com, makers of Clarify. Do not forget to send in your dumb questions like Steve Davidson did. I love dumb questions, especially the kind I can answer. You can also send comments and suggestions by emailing me at allison@podfeet.com, and you can follow me on Twitter and app.net @podfeet. Check out the NosillaCast Google Plus community, too. I got to tell you, I go over there all the time to get answers to questions. And when people send me questions, a lot of times I say, can you go ask the community because they're smarter than me? And that seems to really work out well. That's over at podfeet.com/Google+. If you want to join in the fun of the live show, like, let's see, Jamal came back this week. CJ from Ann Arbor came back. Charles, I think his name is. And Anouk was here for a little while. I think he's cut out now, but Anouk was here, never been here before, had a really good time. We're having a blast in the live show. If you want to do that, head on over to podfeet.com/live on Sunday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Join the friendly and enthusiastic Nosilla castaways. Thanks for listening, and stay subscribed. Yeah, it was pretty sad. Oh man. You know, people get mad at me because I always say she's dumb, but... Oops, sorry about that. That's exactly why I always tell people to cover their ears, but that wasn't that bad that time. Let's see, what did I do? I'm got the wrong... there we go. That's what I want to see. For listening, and stay subscribed. Yeah, that's a very weird way to put that, Mark. My pork is cooked, and stay subscribed. Okay. And we're going to go back to the beginning, and that didn't blow your ears out that time, did it? That's very interesting. Let's see, I want to bring that in just a little bit. There we go. You can do a select all, deselect. Let's see, no. Just this one. Set you about there. And we're going to select all, deselect that one. Make that go about right there. Let's see how that sounds. And this is show number 490. Well, you know, first there was the streaming of the Apple event. This is show number 490. Well, you know, all right. All right, I think we're good. Family share doesn't share iTunes Match. But you could share the songs. Oh, so I see what you're saying, Charles. So you'd have to pay for iTunes Match twice. You can't share the same stuff that's up matched. That's unfortunate. Where did I get that? There we go. All right, I am done with all of that. Let me get rid of this and go maybe like this. There we go. So we're going to link those together. That was me doing a lot of work there. We need some more listener contributions. I'm having to do too much work. Oh, Detroit Tigers. Do you know? All right, Charles. I saw. I was a little kid when the Detroit Tigers made the World Series in, what would that have been? 1968, maybe, something like that. I remember I was in. No, I was in 5th grade. I was 10 years old, so it would have been 1968, and they stopped school for the World Series. Every single class, we just sat and watched baseball. And every kid was for the Detroit Tigers except this one girl who I didn't like very much. She was voting for, who would have been in 68? It was the Cardinals, I think. St. Louis Cardinals, I think they were playing. So that's it. 43 times. Wait. 3 times. Okay. So, yeah, are you old enough to remember that game? Or that series? I'm not much of a sports fanatic myself, but I do remember that. All right, well, it looks like we're done here. It is 5:55. I'm going to say goodbye. Let's see, we'll go last in, first out. We'll say goodbye to Alpha Geek Radio. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you for your patience on getting in here, and we'll go ahead and say goodbye. Goodbye, Alpha Geek Radio. All right, Steve, you can kill Alpha Geek Radio. Yeah, it was St. Louis. Oh, cool. All right, I remember that correctly. I was a little whippersnapper then. AGR is gone, and next up we're going to say goodbye to the listeners on the app and listening to straight audio from NosillaCast. Goodbye, everybody. All right, we are stopped there. Mark lived in Detroit. I didn't know that. In the streets for the celebration. Oh, Charles, interesting. So we're the same age. You know, Steve and I were both born in 1968, actually on the same day, 4 hours apart. How weird is that? Did I just export? I think I just exported. I'm having too much time talking to Charles. I'm sorry. Yeah, we were born in 58, so we're 10 and 68. That's what I meant. 928 AIFF. There we are. All right, we are good. Uh-oh. It's about time I clean up my disk. I only have 200 gig left out of a terabyte. I better go run that app I was telling Dorothy about today. All right, guys, I think we are all set. It's been a lovely day. Goodbye, Charles. All right, goodbye, everybody. I'm going to say goodbye. Where am I going to say goodbye? Oh, I think I do that over here. Stop broadcast. Here we go. Goodbye.